So, in her tower alone the maiden sat. His very shield was gone, only the case, her own poor work, her empty labor left. But still she heard him, still his picture formed, and grew between her and the pictured wall. Then came her father, sang in low tones, "Have comfort," whom she greeted quietly. Then came her brethren, saying, "Peace to thee, sweet sister," whom she answered with all calm. But when they left her to herself again, death like a friend's voice from a distant field, approaching through the darkness called. The owls wailing had power upon her, and she mixed her fancies with the sallow rifted glooms of evening and the moanings of the wild. And in those days she made a little song, and called her song the song of love and death, and sang it sweetly could she make and sing. Sweet is true love, though given in vain, and sweet is death, who puts an end to pain. I know not which is sweeter, no, not I. Love, art thou sweet, then bitter death must be. Love, thou art bitter, sweet as death to me. O love, if death be sweeter, let me die. Sweet love that seems not made to fade away, sweet death that seems to make us loveless clay. I know not which is sweeter, no, not I. I fain would follow love, if that could be. I needs must follow death, who calls for me. Call, and I follow, let me die. High, with the last line, scaled her voice, and this, all in a fiery dawning, wild with voice, that shook her tower. The brothers heard, and thought with shuddering, hark the phantom of the house, that ever shrieks before a death, and called the father, and all three in hurry and fear ran to her, and lo, the blood-red light of dawn flared on her face, she shrilling, "Let me die!" As, when we dwell upon a word we know, repeating till the word we know so well becomes a wonder, and we know not why. So dwelt the father on her face, and thought, "Is this Elaine?" Till back the maiden fell, then gave a languid hand to each, and lay, speaking a still good morrow with her eyes. At last she said, "Sweet brothers, yesternight I seemed a curious little maid again, as happy when we dwelt among the woods, and when ye used to take me with the flood up the great river in the boatman's boat. Only ye would not pass beyond the cape that has the poplar on it. There ye fixed your limit, oft returning with the tide, and yet I cried because ye would not pass beyond it, and far up the shining flood, until we found the place of the king, and yet ye would not. But this night I dreamed that I was all alone upon the flood, and then I said, now shall I have my will, and there I woke, but still the wish remains. So let me hence, that I may pass at last beyond the poplar and far up the flood, until I find the palace of the king. There will I enter in among them all, and no man there will dare to mock at me. But there the fine Gawain will wander at me, and there the great Sir Lancelot muse at me, Gawain, who bade 1,000 farewells to me. Lancelot, who coldly went, nor bade me one, and there the king will know me and my love, and there the queen herself will pity me, and all the gentle court will welcome me, and after my long voyage I shall rest. Peace, said her father. O my child, ye seem light-headed, for what force is yours to go so far, being sick, and wherefore would ye look on this proud fellow again, who scorns us all? Then the rough Tor began to heave and move, and bluster into stormy sobs, and say, I never loved him, and I met with him. I care not, however great he be. Then will I strike at him, and strike him down. Give me good fortune, I will strike him dead. For this discomfort he hath done the house. For to whom the gentler sister made reply, Fret not herself, dear brother, nor be wroth, seeing it is no more Sir Lancelot's fault. Not to love me, then, is mine to love him of all men who seems to me the highest. Highest, the father answered, echoing, highest? He meant to break the passion in her. Nay, daughter, I know not what you call the highest, but this I know, for all the people know it. He loves the queen, and in open shame she returns his love in open shame. If this be high, what is it to be low? Now, thoughts and desires, feelings, I guess, emotions. Emotions, feelings, and thoughts, not per se criticize them in themselves, but to act them out, to let them open, some of that is an issue, right? Then spake the lily maid of Astolat, sweet father, all too faint, and sick am I, for anger, these are slanders. Never yet was noble man, but made ignoble talk. He makes no friend, who never made a foe. But now it is my glory to have loved one peerless without stain, so let me pass. My father, howsoever I seem to you, not all unhappy, having loved God's best and greatest, through my love had no return. Yet, seeing you desire your child to live, thanks, but you work against your own desire. For if I could believe the things you say, I should but die the sooner. Wherefore cease, sweet father, and bid call the ghostly man hither, and let me shrive me clean and die. So when the ghostly man had come and gone, she, with the face bright as for sin forgiven, besought Lavaine to write as she devised a letter, word for word. And when he asked, is it for Lancelot? Is it for my dear lord? Then will I bear it gladly, she replied, for Lancelot and the queen and all the world, but I myself must bear it. Then he wrote the letter she devised, which, being writ and folded, O sweet father, tender and true, deny me not, she said, ye never yet denied my fancies this, however strange. My latest lay the letter in my hand, a little ere I die, and close the hand. Upon it I shall guard it even in death, and when the heat is gone from out my heart, then take the little bed on which I died, for Lancelot's love, and deck it like the queen's, for richness, and me also like the queen, and all I have of rich, and lay me on it, and let there be prepared a chariot beer, to take me to the river, and a barge be ready on the river, clothed in black. I go in state to court to meet the queen. There surely I shall speak for mine own self, and none of you can speak for me so well. And therefore let our dumb old man alone go with me. He can steer and row, and he will guide me to that palace, to the doors. She ceased, her father promised, whereupon she grew so cheerful that they deemed her death was rather in the fantasy than the blood. But 10 slow mornings passed, and on the 11th her father laid the letter in her hand, and closed the hand upon it, and she died. So that day there was dole in Astolat. But when the next sun brake from underground, then those two brethren slowly with bent brows, accompanying the sad chariot beer, passed like a shadow through the field that shone full summer to that stream whereon the barge, palled all its length, and blackest samite lay. There sat the lifelong creature of the house, loyal the dumb old servitor on deck, winking his eyes and twisted all his face. So those two brethren from the chariot took, and on the black decks laid her in her bed, set in her hand a lily o'er her hung, the silken case with braided blazonings, and kissed her quiet brows, and sang to her, Sister, farewell forever, and again Farewell, sweet sister, parted all in tears. Then rose the dumb old servitor, and the dead, oared by the dumb, went upwards with the flood. In her right hand the lily, in her left the letter, all her bright hair streaming down, and all the coverlid was cloth of gold, drawn to her waist, and she herself in white, all but her face, and that clear-featured face was lovely, for she did not seem as dead, but fast asleep, and lay as though she smiled. That day Sir Lancelot at the palace craved audience of Guinevere, to give at last the price of half a realm, his costly gift, hard-worn and hardly won, with bruise and blow, with deaths of others and almost his own. The 9 years fought for diamonds, for he saw one of her house, and sent him to the queen, bearing his wish, whereto the queen agreed, with such and so unmoved a majesty, she might have seemed her statue, but that he, low drooping till he well nigh kissed her feet, for loyal awe, saw with a sidelong eye the shadow of some peace-appointed lace in the queen's shadow vibrate on the walls, and parted, laughing in his courtly heart. And all an oriel on the summer side, vine-clad of Arthur's palace, toward the stream they met, and Lancelot, kneeling, uttered, Queen, Lady, my liege, in whom I have my joy, take what I had not won except for you, those jewels, and made me happy, making them an armlet for the roundest arm on earth, our necklace for a neck, to which the swans is tawnier than her signets. These are words, your beauty is your beauty, and I sin at speaking. Yet, oh grant my worship of it, words as we grant grief tears. Such sin in words perchance we both can pardon, but my queen, I hear rumors flying through your court, our bond, as not the bond of man and wife, should have in it an absoluter trust. To make up that defect, let rumors be. When did not rumors fly? These, as I trust that you trust me in your own nobleness, I may not well believe that you believe. While thus he spoke, half turned away, the queen brake from the vast oriel embowering vine, leaf after leaf, and tore and cast them off, till all the place whereon she stood was green. Then, when he ceased, in one cold passive hand, received at once and laid aside the gems that are on a table near her, and replied, It may be I am quicker of belief than you believe me, Lancelot of the Lake. Our bond is not the bond of man and wife. This good is in it, whatsoever of ill. It can be broken easier. I for you, this many a year, have done despite and wrong. To one, whomever in my heart of hearts I did acknowledge nobler. What are these diamonds for me? They had been thrice their worth. Being your gift, had you not lost your own. To hearts loyal, the value of all gifts must vary as the giver's, not for me. For her, for your new fancy. Only this, grant me, I pray you, have your joys apart. I doubt not that however changed, you keep so much of what is graceful, and myself would shun to break. Those bounds of courtesy, in which as Arthur's queen I move and rule, so cannot speak my mind. An end to this, a strange one yet, I take it with Amen. So pray you, add my diamonds to her pearls, deck her with these, tell her she shines me down, an armlet for an arm, to which the queen's is haggard, or a necklace for a neck. Oh, as much fairer as faith once fair, was richer than these diamonds, hers, not mine. Nay, by the mother of our Lord himself. I mean, why does a god have to have a mother? There's people who say that about Satan, that Satan has a mother, and that Tiamat's Satan's mother. Are hers or mine? Mine now to work my will. She shall not have them, saying which she seized, and through the casement, standing wide for heat, flung them, and down they flashed, and smote the stream. Then from the smitten surface flashed, as it were, diamonds to meet them, and they passed away. Then when Sir Lancelot leant in half disdain at love, life, all things, on the window ledge, close underneath his eye, and right across, where these had fallen, slowly past the barge, whereon the lily maid of Astolat lay smiling like a star in blackest night. But the wild queen, who saw not, burst away, to weep and wail in secret, and the barge, on the palace doorway sliding, paused. There two stood armed, and kept the door, to whom all up the marble stair, tier over tier, were added mouths that gaped, and eyes that asked, what is it? But that oarsman's haggard face, as hard and still as the face that men shape to their fancy's eye from broken rocks, on some cliff side, appalled them. And they said, he is enchanted, cannot speak, and she, look how she sleeps, the fairy queen so fair. Yea, but how pale! What are they, flesh and blood? Are come to take the king to fairyland. For some do hold our Arthur cannot die, but that he passes into fairyland. While thus they babbled of the king, and the king came girt with knights, then turned the tongueless man from the half face to the full eye, and rose and pointed to the damsel and the doors. So Arthur had the meek Sir Percival and pure Sir Galahad to uplift the maid, and reverently they bore her into the hall. Kind of like figure skating, but without skates, right? Then came the fine Gawain, and wondered at her, and Lancelot later came and mused at her. Last the queen herself, and pitied her. But Arthur spied the letter in her hand, stooped, took, brake the seal, and read it. This was all. Most noble lord Sir Lancelot of the Lake, I sometime called the maid of Astolat. Come for you, left me taking no farewell, hither to take my last farewell of you. I loved you, and my love had no return, and therefore my true love has been my death, and therefore to our Lady Guinevere, and to all other ladies, I make moan. Tommy Lauren, doesn't that rearrange to moan Hitler? Is that a real name? If it's not a real name, you know that's on purpose. Pray for my soul, and yield me burial. Pray for my soul, thou too, Sir Lancelot, as thou art a knight peerless. Thus he read, and ever in reading, lords and dames wept, looking often from his face who read to hers which lay so silent, and at times so touched were they, half thinking that her lips, who had devised the letter, moved again. Then freely spoke Sir Lancelot to them all, my lord, liege Arthur, and all ye that hear, know that for this most gentle maiden's death, right heavy am I, for good she was and true, but loved me with the love beyond all love, in women whomsoever I have known. Yet to be loved makes not to love again. Not at my years, however, it hold in youth. I swear by truth and knighthood that I gave. No cause, not willingly, for such a love. To this I call my friends in testimony, her brethren and her father, who himself besought me to be plain and blunt, and used to break her passion, some discourtesy against my nature. What I could, I did. I left her, and I bade her no farewell. Though I had dreamt the damsel would have died, I might have put my wits to some rough use, and helped her from herself. Then said the queen, sea was her wrath, yet working after storm. Ye might at least have done her so much grace, fair lord, as would have helped her from her death. He raised his head, their eyes met, and hers fell, adding, Queen, she would not be content, save that I wedded her, which could not be. Then might she follow me through the world, she asked. It could not be. I told her that her love was but the flash of youth, and would darken down, to rise hereafter in a stiller flame, toward one more worthy of her than would I, more especially were he. She wedded, poor, estate them with large land and territory, in mine own realm beyond the narrow seas, to keep them in all joyance. More than this, I could not, this she would not, and she died. Now, that's sort of Hollywood nonsense. If you find a good spouse, you find a good spouse. Not, oh, certainly somebody perfect is going to come along, somebody wealthy too. No, it doesn't. Almost never works like that, and it's not good for people to be all alone and whatnot because of this foolishness. He pausing, Arthur answered, O my knight, it will be to thy worship as my knight, and mine as head of all our table round, to see that she be buried worshipfully. So toward that shrine, which then in all the realm was richest, Arthur slowly went, the marshalled order of their table round, and Lancelot sad beyond his wont, to see the maiden buried, not as one unknown, nor meanly, but with gorgeous obsequies and mass and rolling music like a queen. And when the knights had laid her comely head low in the dust of half-forgotten kings, then Arthur spake among them, let her tomb be costly and her image thereupon, and let the shield of Lancelot at her feet be carven, and her lily in her hand. And let the story of her dolorous voyage for all true hearts be blazoned on her tomb, in letters gold and azure, which was wrought thereafter. But when now the lords and dames and people from the high doors streaming break disorderly as homeward each, the queen who marks Sir Lancelot, where he moved apart, drew near and sighing in passing, Lancelot, forgive me, mine was jealousy and love. He answered, with his eyes upon the ground, this is love's curse, pass on, my queen. Forgiven. But Arthur, who beheld his cloudy brows, approached him, and with full affection said, Lancelot, my Lancelot, thou in whom I love, thou in whom I have most joy and most affiance, for I know what thou hast been in battle by my side, and many a time have watched thee at the tilt, strike down the lusty and long-practiced knight, and let the younger and unskilled go by, to win his honor and to make his name, and love thy courtesies, and thee a man made to be loved. But now I would to God, seeing the homeless trouble in thine eyes, thou couldst have loved this maiden, shaped, it seems, by God for thee alone, and from her face, if one may judge the living by the dead, delicately pure and marvelously fair, who might have brought thee, now a lonely man, wifeless and heirless, noble issue, sons born to the glory of thine name and fame, my knight, the great Sir Lancelot of the Lake. Then answered Lancelot, fair she was, my king, pure as you ever wish your knights to be. To doubt her fairness were to want an eye, to doubt her pureness were to want a heart, yea, to be loved, if what is worthy love could bind him, but free love will not be bound. Free love so bound were freest, said the king. Let love be free, free love is for the best. And, after heaven, on our dull side of death, what should be best, if not so pure a love, clothed in so pure a loveliness? Yet thee she failed to bind, though being, as I think, unbound as yet, and gentle as I know. And Lancelot answered nothing, but he went, and at inrunning of a little brook, sat by the river in a cove and watched the high-reed wave, and lifted up his eyes, and saw the barge that brought her moving down, far oft a blot upon the stream, and said, low in himself, ah, simple heart and sweet, ye love me, damsel, surely with the love far tenderer than my queen's. Pray for thy soul, ay, that will I. Farewell too, now at last. Farewell, fair lily, jealousy and love, not rather dead love's harsh air, jealous pride. Queen, if I grant the jealousy as of love, may not your crescent fear for name and fame speak as it waxes of a love that wanes. Why did the king dwell on my name to me? Mine own name shames me, seeming a reproach. Lancelot, whom the Lady of the Lake caught from his mother's arms, the wondrous one who passes through the vision of the night. She chanted snatches of mysterious hymns, heard on the winding waters eve and morn. She kissed me, saying, thou art fair, my child, as a king's son, and often in her arms she bare me pacing on the dusky mere. Would she have drowned me in it, wherever it be? For what am I? What profits me my name? Of greatest knight I fought for it, and have it, pleasure to have it, none to lose it, pain. Now grown a part of me, but what use is it? But what use in it? To make men worse by making my sin known? Our sin seems less, the sinner seeming great. Alas for Arthur's greatest knight, a man not after Arthur's heart. I needs must break these bonds that so defame me, not without she wills it. Would I, if she willed it? Nay, who knows? But if I would not, then may God, I pray him, send a sudden angel down to seize me by the hair and bear me far, and fling me deep into that forgotten mere among the tumbled fragments of the hills. So groaned Sir Lancelot in remorseful pain, not knowing he should die a holy man. Now, it's certainly better for a person to, pray for their forgiveness and that they become guided and all that. And the funeral and the burial, well, I mean, you mention a different name, or mention who they are, but the funeral and the burial for rich and poor should be the same. Famous, whatever, the martyrs shouldn't get a bigger tomb and all that sort of stuff.